Good day. Welcome, welcome. I'm Jay, and this is Homeschool Your Kids podcast. Today we have with us Shenita. Shenita, introduce yourself.
Well, hello. Thank you for the invite and having me on. My name is Shenita Williams, and I am a homeschool mom. I have three children. I have been homeschooling. This is my 15th or 16th year. I think I've lost track. Um, I run a educational consulting business. It started out just kind of homeschool coaching, kind of pre-pandemic, but then it really blew up a little bit during the pandemic, obviously, because everyone needed some help. And then I've kind of moved into more partnering with community schools, doing social emotional learning. I realized that space is not really held for elementary students. It's like more middle and high school students. And what I have just seen when I ran my pilot program with homeschoolers, um, these beauty images like really hit our babies really young. So after doing some research, I decided, you know what, we're going to take this program to an elementary school. We're going to grassroot it up. We're going to make it work, modify it. I've worked and homeschooled. I've been unemployed and homeschooled. I have ran a business and homeschooled. I have worked part-time and homeschooled. Homeschooling has been my jam for quite a while.
I love it. Yes. So 15 plus, you're a vet. You're a vet in the game, girl. So with that, what there like what made you say, you know what, I'm a homeschool mine. They're not into school system or private. What made
So that decision, well, I'll just say first, I never in a million years would have thought I would have homeschooled children. I knew someone who was homeschooling when I first started my family, but they were more at the high school level and they were trying to explain to me how it worked, but my public school brain just couldn't wrap my head around it. What was really the driving factor? It was kind of twofold. The first is before homeschool, before children, I was a licensed social worker. So I worked in child protective services, child welfare, family services, and I investigated way too many inappropriate allegations in family daycare, home daycare, and daycare centers. So when I got married and had kids, I always
oh
knew
wow.
they weren't going to go to daycare. So the plan was to just stay home with them until they were school aged, right? And so, of course, my wonderful husband of 19 years would constantly remind me, yeah, my mother stayed home with us until we went to kindergarten. I was like, well, that's great for her. I was the career woman, like, I was on my way. But after I had my first, and just seeing the responsibility and the weight of raising this little life, I knew there was no way that I could leave her with a stranger. So I stayed home and we made it work. And then another kid came and they were close together. And then I think when she started to kind of show interest in learning, we teach them to use a fork, we teach them to use the bathroom, we teach them to get dressed. So naturally, we started teaching colors, letters, and numbers. And I think once we finished the sounds, like, we learned the sounds of the letters, I was a little confused at why she wasn't reading. I was like, come on, girl, you know the sound. A, apple, right? And then it didn't dawn on me because I didn't come from an educational background. You have to teach blends, right? They have to learn blends
Yeah.
before they start reading. And once I was able to teach her to read on my own, it gave me
Game
all the
changer.
confidence in the world that, oh, I could homeschool
Yes.
my kids. Initially, I wanted to put her in the neighborhood pre-K4 program because I felt like I had done everything I could do, right, before really delving into the world of homeschool. But you when you make too much for the free programs, but it's not quite enough to pay for private school. So that is really how we
Right.
end up making our decision to homeschool. We couldn't afford a private
Nice.
pre-K program. I knew she needed some more formal instruction because we had done everything up to like kindergarten, possibly even first grade, and she was 4. So I was like, we're not just gonna sit here. And she wasn't old enough to go to kindergarten. So I was like, you know what? Let me find some resources. Let me go back and reach out to my friend who said she homeschooled and get some information. We find out what the laws say, how to do this. Do I need a school desk? Do I need a calendar? Do I need a bulletin board? Like, all the things that my mind knew from, public education. And we said, we'll take it 1 year at a time. And here we are years later, and I'm homeschooling my last one. My oldest, she is in a dual enrollment high school program and is graduating this year.
Mhm.
She has a 4.2 GPA, got a full academic scholarship to
Oh,
Bowie State
wow.
University. So that's where
Go
so
ahead.
that's my final success, right? I got one over the hump. And then I have
Yeah.
my son who's a sophomore. He's doing the same kind of dual enrollment situation like she is. And then my baby who is in the fourth grade, she's 9. We still homeschool, run into tutorials, run into practices. So it's been a wonderful world. And I think the ultimate reason for us wanting to homeschool, outside of everything I just shared, was we wanted to spend time building character in our children. And we realize if you send your kids with a
Mm.
stranger 6, 7 hours a day, 2 hours before care, 2 hours after care, you got like 3 hours with your kid in the evening between homework, dinner, and God forbid, sports and practices. How will they learn you and your spouse's values? How will they learn the character traits that you want them to
Mm.
learn if they're never with you? So then homeschooling just made
Mm.
more sense. So, I'll be honest, I never intended to raise child prodigies. I don't have child prodigies. I have students who've been taught how to critically think. I have students who have been taught how to be productive, be organized, be responsible, ask for help when you need help. And they have been taught how to study. So they're getting these wonderful grades, not because everything comes easy to them, but they have been raised and fostered in an environment of homeschool where you constantly get to course correct. You constantly get to, provide edits if they're doing things in a way that's not quite the best or not the most productive. So you have the time poured into them because they've been with you. They haven't been at school for 7 hours. So all of that, I know it was a long-winded answer. All of that is how we, eventually came to
No,
the homeschool.
that's fine.
As homeschool, we can't never just
Yes,
come
no,
out and,
that was
give an answer,
perfect.
right? We got to give you the backdrop and
Well,
plan A through Z and how it led here. So that's our story.
yes,
And it's been really great. It's been phenomenal.
nice. No, that's a beautiful journey because like you say, you didn't even expect to do it. So it's like, hey, brought that first bundle home and said, oh, I cannot dare drop her off with strangers. No.
Mhm. That
How could
stranger
I
danger
ever?
became
And
it,
then
it
boom, look
became
at you,
real.
15 years.
It did. It
Yes,
did.
and here we are, 15 years later.
Still in the
No,
game.
hats off to you. Yes.
Thank
So
you.
what I know you say you had to figure out your footing, you had to figure out, do I need a desk? Do I need bulletin board? How did you work out your day to day? What does that look like for you all? I know, the older two are now doing their
Yes.
own thing basically. But what was that like finding your groove basically, finding your what worked for your family?
I think it probably took me, and this is just full transparency. It took me about 4 years to really figure out
Mm.
and get a handle on my schedule, my curriculum choices, understanding the difference between a co-op versus a tutorial versus just some parents getting together every now and again. So I'll be honest, I did everything
Mm.
that I now tell homeschoolers not to do. I went out and purchased some desks. I painted this little column in my kitchen, and it was like the chalkboard, right? I used the chalkboard paint. That's where I had my daily
Mm.
announcements, right? The date, just all those things that I could recall and remember. And then there was a season where we moved, and I didn't have that kind of space, so then I homeschooled them right at the dinner table. That was, we took off the tablecloth and we put down the little mats,
Mm.
and they did their schoolwork there. But for the first, I would say, 2 years, I was just home with them in the house with a bunch of Dollar Tree workbooks, Five Below workbooks.
Yeah.
Those workbooks that you see at Costco or wholesalers, it's like everything you need to know for kindergarten, first and second grade.
Mm.
those were the things that I had.
Yeah.
I just utilized those. And because we were a one income family, at that time, a young mom, a new mom, we didn't have a lot of money to pay some of these tutorial fees and, pay for all these additional classes. And I felt like when they were that young, it was way more manageable for me to go through math and phonics and language arts and the core curriculum, science and social studies, and things for like art, music, and PE and health. I kind of it made it a part of our lifestyle. So whenever we went to the park and we were on the swings or we were
Mhm.
riding bikes or we were exercising, I was always just taking pictures because I realized, you have your formal education where you sit down with your workbooks, and then you have informal education where you're just out exploring nature and you pick up a leaf or, whatever, rocks and those kind of things. So I was able to figure out homeschooling became who we are as a family and not just something we did Monday through Friday from 8 to 2:30. And then I got real
Yeah.
crafty and realized I don't have to homeschool Monday through Friday from 8 to 2:30. We can start at 10 a.m. if I want to. We could do that
Yeah.
in the evening. And the seasons where I worked in the evenings, we homeschooled in the, a few hours in the morning. And then I started to realize, and then I started to meet other homeschoolers who had young ones like me. Oh, school only takes y'all an hour and a half. Okay. And so that's when I realized, even when you think about traditional and formal instruction in an institutional setting, they're not giving instructions for 6 hours. You got 20 minutes to line up and recess and bathroom breaks and water fountain and transition periods. You once you add it up, you realize formal instruction is only a couple hours a day. And so, we would finish
Mhm.
our work by like 10:30. And then we head out to the park and then we'd see some older people who, they wanted to cast judgment. Oh, no school today. And then my kids, they, of course, homeschooler, we already finished our schoolwork for the day. And so then that opened the
Right.
conversation, right? Oh, how'd you finish so soon? Oh, well, we homeschool. Oh, well, what's that like? Oh, God bless you. I could never do
Mhm.
it. And I was very surprised, Jay, at the amount of people who gave me that response who have children who say, "Oh, I could
Yeah,
never
right.
be with
That
my
say I
kids
can
all
never.
day long." It always just made me like side-eyed, like, do you hate your children that much? Do you not have patience for your children? To I mean, to hear parents say,
I
"Oh no,
know a
they."
lot cite patience. I know a lot speak on the patient part. I don't know if it's the dislike, the dislike, but I know patience is always a part of that formula of why they say, "Oh no, I can't do that."
Yeah, I can see that. Okay, maybe that was a too strong of a word, but it's just kind of like I found that out too during COVID. Like my husband, he was considered essential, so he never really like was home, but he had more time at home, and I loved it. And people were telling me, "Oh, my husband got to go back to work. He is crowding my space," and I'm like, "Do y'all not
Like, do
like
you like your husband?
this?" So,
Like, do you like any of your family members? Do
it
you
was
like
definitely
anybody?
definitely some of that, but I think you're right, Jay. I think patience, it does take some patience to homeschool. And then one of the things that I found very beneficial is that I get to see what their true strengths and weaknesses are. I get to see not all of my children, while they were raised and brought up in the same environment, they do not all learn the same. I have some visual learners. My son was a kinesthetic learner. He had to do everything standing up at his desk, tapping his pencil. He could not sit down. And, I had another homeschool mom come to me years ago and she said, it's a good thing you're homeschooling him because, they would try to label your son as having all this energy and attention. She was alluding to, some of these misdiagnoses that are occurring today. And I said, you know what, that's a good point. But he would just stand at his desk and he had to tap his foot. I remember when I taught in my first homeschool co-op, I think it was the first, second grade, I had all boys,
Mm.
an all boy class. So we did our work to push ups, jumping jacks, wall squats, lunges, and they're chanting back the times table. I had to figure out, okay, they're not just gonna sit and listen. And I think that's the
Yeah.
part where when you are homeschooling and you are not engaged in your own work your own, income and employment, you have the time and patience can develop. I think a part of the lack of patience for parents who make those comments about, oh, I could never homeschool, is because their career is kind of center focused. And of course, you have to work because if you don't work, you don't eat, right? So this is not a knock to those who need to work, but we planned our life. We purchased a home. We did all those things in the beginning, knowing that it was going to be like one and a half income. We didn't know I was going to come all the way off my job, for a season. But I realized you learn how to be more patient because you're like, okay, this didn't work. Or like if we had a day where, when you have teenagers or the prepubescent teens coming around and you're just moody for no reason. And you're like, wait a minute, we're not going to do math. We're going to sit here and talk about this attitude. We're going to work on this character
Oh,
trait
yeah.
because to me, the math that day is not that important. I want to know why you're waking up grouchy and snapping at people. Is it that you didn't get enough sleep? So you have more time to assess, like really, really what's going on. So it's been a great journey. I mean, it hasn't always been roses. We have definitely had to homeschool through some challenges, through losing grandparents and losing other loved ones. Last year, I became really sick. I was diagnosed with stage 2 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, and that
Mm,
shook my homeschool, practice some, where I had to figure out, okay, there's no way that I'm going to have energy to do this. So we enrolled in the tutorial where she went all day for Tuesdays and Thursdays. And then I became the parent that still is facilitating her homeschool, but I'm doing more so checking her work now, like you would if your children was in school all day. So, there have been ebbs and flows where you've had to make pivots and make adjustments. And if you find one particular thing doesn't work, then guess what? You have the freedom to choose something different. And you don't have to wait
yeah.
to the end of the school year to change it. There have been times, I think when my oldest was in the third grade, I realized I completely forgot about spelling in my language arts curriculum. I was like, this child, she was doing something. She was writing a paper, writing a summary. And I was like, she cannot spell. I was like, what? I was like, wait a minute. You know what? I said, I remember doing spelling tests. So again, it hasn't always been peaches and roses. It hasn't always been perfect. There are things that I forgot because again, those early years was trying to piecemeal it together. I never bought like a box curriculum for anything. Like I always would piecemeal stuff together. I just forgot about the spelling. And then we got caught up on the spelling.
Mhm.
But look, now they don't even need it because they use spell check for everything. And everything is,
Everything.
run through Google. So
Mhm.
yes, ma'am. I
Yeah.
don't even remember what the question
Yes, no, I
I
love
answered it.
talking about your day to day and how you found your groove.
Yes,
But
there we
no,
go.
Shanita, when I tell you you're dropping so many gems and it's so respected because you like a 15 plus, you can't knock that. You had to find your way. You already on touched on it not being easy to start with, and then learning further on that you know what we got to do this from 8 to 2. We could do this from 10 to 2, 10 to 2, 10 to 12.
Right.
Whatever the case may be. But like you're touching on things that new homeschoolers or thinking about homeschoolers are thinking about. Like they're and I feel like that's where that patient factor comes in because a lot of people process and hear homeschool and they think on a 7 or 8 hour day basis like, oh,
Right.
I'm gonna have to sit my child down for 7 hours. I can't do that. I can't sit a child down for 7 hours. That just sounds not fun. Okay. So let's not do that. Okay. But no, I love everything that you are sharing, your journey. So now you are doing educational consulting,
Yes. So
and
I
that is in
initially
partnership with the homeschool.
so some of it has been homeschool. I mean, clearly with the cancer diagnosis last year, I had to make some pivots. Mid-year, was able to finish out the year. But I was doing virtual instruction with those who were not quite comfortable going back into the classroom, homeschool classroom setting at tutorials. So a lot of my clients had maybe a immunocompromised sibling or another family member, which is why they didn't want to send their student to a tutorial. So I've taught in
Oh.
tutorials, and then just out the blue, like I've taught for tutorials, I've taught for um, a company which I was teaching English to Chinese kids in China. So I've been used to teaching virtual, like that had become like another passion, right? Learning how to fully engage on a virtual platform because everybody can't teach virtual. Uh, but one of the moms who was wanting to enroll in my class at the tutorial emailed me on the side and said, "Hey, would you be willing to offer this virtually?" And initially I was like, that is not on like that's not on the description, ma'am. The description says Tuesdays and Thursdays. I'm teaching science and social studies at this location. And so, but then I thought about it and I said, well, Shenita, it's the same course. It's you wouldn't have to really do anything different, but just put it in Google Classroom. And I said, okay, well, I'm willing to meet face to face on the computer once a week. The other day will be asynchronous. If that works for you, sure. So, and somebody else found out, and I think that first year I maybe had 5 or 6 students. And I said, okay. So where I thought my business was going to be more homeschool coaching for parents, it turned into a service-based business for actually, well, still for parents, but more so for students. So then the following year, I
Okay.
said, okay, let me advertise and let me go ahead and do the 4 core subjects. Again, thinking for those people who still wanted virtual. Things were just opening back up, but there was still a lot of hesitancy. And I said, okay, we're going to take this. I rebranded my logo and I said, okay, we're really going to rock and roll with this thing. And so I think the next year I had probably about 18 students across all of the subjects. And I like fun. I like young stuff. I realized as my older two got older, I could no longer really plan their parties because I think my sweet spot is kindergarten to about 5th grade. After 5th grade, I'm corny. Like they don't like what I do. So I'm realizing that that's where I kept it. And because I had studied a little bit under classical education, which really promotes the one room schoolhouse, I was comfortable doing like science, social studies, health in like a lower elementary pod, if you will. So I had students from 3rd grade to 5th grade. And I only taught the math level that my daughter was in. So that was the only class because math is varying. You can't just lump everybody together. It's a spiral program where you're building skill. And then so I did that for a couple of years. And like I said, after, getting sick, I said, okay, I didn't do anything for a year and then pivoted. And then I started to realize about this social emotional program. And I realized I would see that a lot in traditional school settings, but it wasn't a notion that homeschoolers were really aware of. It's really big in the school setting, social emotional learning, right? So I did a couple of pilot programs with the homeschoolers I, was in relationship with, where we're teaching self-esteem, self-confidence, self-love, boundaries, healthy relationships, anti-bullying, etiquette, vision. And so it was a really, really nice program. We had a mother-daughter tea party, and everyone got to put on their fascinators or whatever those little Easter hats are called. And white gloves. I mean, just pulled out real tea china. It was just really nice. And then I think the last big program we had with the homeschoolers was I hired an etiquette coach to come in and teach proper dining etiquette. And then we put the girls to the test. I rented a space at Maggiano's out in Annapolis, Maryland, and got a little private room. Said you all have to come dressed to the nines, and you're going to practice and show me you can have a formal dining experience. And so that was really successful. And then I started looking into some contracting with public schools. I said, oh, I want to take this into another environment. And so I have a current contract right now with Baltimore County Public Schools where I do that program. It's a program I call it Growing Girls, because they're all growing. Right. And I didn't want to call them, women and ladies, because again, I've modified this for the elementary level. So I still want to refer to them as girls because that's what you are, but you're growing. And so we're at the point now in that program. It's a 8-week program, and we're at the etiquette part now. So today I'm driving up to Baltimore, go there once a week, and really spend some time really just trying to pour into these young ladies because the images that they are faced with, like I still believe in decorum. I still believe in modesty. I still believe in respect, and everything that they see on
Mm,
TV and hear on radio and social media is anti that. And so, it's like,
mm.
trying to pick up all the sand on the beach, one little sand at a time, right? So, am I making waves yet? Well, if I can affect one person, I feel like I'm doing my job. So that's how I kind of
Right.
got into the educational consulting and just kind of kept morphing into different things. So really based on what the need, what I see the need in the community, I try to make sure that I can provide it.
Nice, nice, nice. Is there a name for it? Like, what's the name for your
The name of my
business?
business is She Training and Consulting. And so everyone says, what does the
Yes.
she stand for? And I'm like, it depends. Depends on what business I was promoting at the time. But for my homeschoolers, it's safer, not safer, it is Supreme Home Educators is what the she stood for.
Okay.
But it's kind of a play on words because, of course, it's all in the women's movement, right? And, wanting to support, other sisters that are out here trying to make sure we are teaching these young ladies how to continue to be young ladies because that's a lost art.
Mm,
Um, and so I
mm.
have a lot of people asking me, well, when are you going to do something for the boys? I'm not a man and I can't teach a boy how to be a man. That is not my ministry. So we're waiting for somebody to step up and do that part, but that ain't me.
No, I say you have to nominate someone. That's how I be feeling too. It's like, you want to talk with everyone, but it's
Right.
like, I'm not a guy. I
I'm
don't
not a
know.
guy. I don't know what y'all go through.
I
I can't
can't,
help you out
yeah.
there. I asked my husband,
Uh-uh.
he wasn't interested.
No, I love everything you are doing. I love that you're such a resource for families, like the whole family, not just the parents, but the kids also. So you're providing tutoring, you're providing kind of like a micro school structure, basically.
It
Then you
does.
have
Yeah.
the parent coaching where you're advocating and helping
Helping
parents
them
or
get started.
encouraging parents to, yes,
Yeah,
I love
helping them get
this.
started. Because a lot of
Yes.
people who come to me and ask, well, I don't know if I can homeschool. And the people who like the moms, or even because I've had a lot of homeschool dads too, like, they're the primary homeschoolers. I'm not going to single it out to just moms. Shout out to my homeschool dads holding it down. Um,
Yes.
I've had a lot of people, when you are already living on one income, that's the biggest hurdle.
Mm,
Like, that is the
mm,
biggest hurdle. A lot of people say, "Well, I would homeschool, but we need 2 incomes to, do this." And, I have a really good, friend of mine who saw what I was doing. She wanted to homeschool, but they hadn't planned their finances, right, before they bought a house, and so it took her some years, but she's now successfully homeschooling. I think she's been homeschooling
nice,
probably 7 or 8 years at this point. But I
nice.
like to show people how it can be done. And so I've done a couple of presentations on how working in homeschooling, how the parents can still work. Like, the face of homeschool changes. So we're not just baking pies and making sourdough bread in the middle of teaching. Like, you have educated businesswomen out here homeschooling, making it work. And one of the things that people don't realize with homeschooling is outsourcing can be your best friend, especially when you don't
Yeah.
have the capability to sit and teach every subject. You don't have to teach every subject. You can if you want, but you don't have to. There are tons of resources out here, virtual and in person, where if want to, your child has a affinity for math and science. And this is one of the things that I tell parents in my coaching: do not put your fears and apprehensions about the subjects you hated in school onto your children. If these are
Mm,
subjects that you struggle with, that's
what?
fine.
Say it
It's fine to
again.
acknowledge it. But listen, when you go back and relearn it with your student, you are learning it as an adult. You are learning it with 20 years of different educational things under your belt. You're not learning it again as a student. So you got to learn to push past those. And if they are excelling, I'll be honest, after about algebra, don't ask me nothing. I'm like, and then I mean like algebra one.
Mm,
Anything beyond that, I
yes.
have to outsource or go to see dad because, that just wasn't my forte. I don't have apprehensions about it. I just know where my limitations are. And so the beautiful thing about when they get to be
Indeed.
11th grade, um, or in some ninth grade, depending on what counties you live in the state of Maryland, they can enroll into the college courses. Now, there's a certain list of things, like they can't go take astrophysics, right? It's like English, Spanish. And so,
Yeah.
again, once they get to those levels where you have reached your capability of understanding, that's when you begin to outsource it. And you still just make sure they have the appropriate tools to study, making sure that they are still doing well on exams. And you can still be there as the primary educator, but you just learn you don't have to do it all. You don't have to be superwoman or super dad.
Yes. Yes, that's the reminder they need. They need to hear that because I have that conversation with so many. Their child be like 4 or 5 and they're talking about calculus already. Well, I can't teach that and I can't teach that. I'm like, you don't have to love. I can't teach that either. But
Right,
yes, no, the resources, understanding that, hey, you have the capabilities to find and outsource, like you said, outsource being your friend
right,
and find who can teach that subject, who can mentor or tutor your child in those different areas that you're not strong in.
right.
Outsource. And like you said, don't put the fears and your apprehension of different academics on your child. Because I'm not a math person. At all. At all. However, I don't try to like, say, hey, okay, we only gonna focus on this. We only gonna
Right.
focus on this because instead I try to do math in fun ways, which is usually playing games.
Yes.
Or finding some kind of online program that can help them. They were on Excel the other day doing the common denominator fractions and stuff. I say, like, see, yes, do that. Do
Yes.
that. But I would never try to
Wonderful.
tackle on all these subjects because this is a lot. But
It's too
parents
much.
definitely, yes, way too much. Parents have
Hmm.
to understand, honey, the help is here. The help is here. That's why I do the podcast.
Yes.
That's why I love presenting all of these lovely, resourceful individuals that say, hey, I want to help you. Like, hey,
Yeah.
pick me, pick me. I got you. So I love that. I love everything that you're sharing because these are all things that I've heard parents talk about or talk to me about when considering or thinking about homeschooling. So it's like you're easing a lot, especially
Yeah.
with you being a vet. I gotta keep throwing it back to you being a vet, girl. You a vet in the game. So everyone's like,
Yes.
oh, okay. And you about to have some high school graduates, college, got food
Yes.
rides to college. Like these are all things parents need, just the reassurance that parents be needing
Yeah.
to
And it
know.
because it
Like,
can be done. You can homeschool. If that's a desire, it can be done. There are ways to get around it. And I think now with the dual enrollment, that just opened up a whole nother world to realize that my ninth grader or 11th grader, again, depending on which county you live. Because some will let ninth graders start at college and some make you wait until 11th grade. But they can take these classes and they can take these hybrid classes. And you can have homeschoolers who are graduating with their high school diploma and an associate's degree within a day of each other
and their
because
associates, yeah.
they are using the dual enrollment or concurrent enrollment or however you choose to word it for the area you live in. So if they're taking math at the college level, they're getting that college credit, but it's also counting for your 11th grade math for your high school credits and curriculum. So I mean there are just so many
Yes.
resources and ways. So I'm really grateful to see a podcast like this that is just kind of looping things together. I think when I first started and I was learning all these resources, I said, I'm gonna create an app. I'm gonna create an app that has all these resources. And then I waited, and 6, 7 years later, I started seeing apps come out. I was like, well, guess I missed that mark. Gotta figure something else out here. um,
Right.
but it's wonderful. I love just the freedom that homeschool gives you. And I think with my Growing Girls program, it's been wonderful because I have my own 9-year-old a part of it. And I also have my oldest daughter, who's 18, as a co-facilitator. So I think for me,
Oh,
one of
nice.
the things I was really adamant about is talking to my oldest, telling her society says that we have to have this cantankerous relationship in your teenage years. And I just don't believe it to be so. I just don't believe when you have parents with wisdom and understanding who have always cared for you with respect, why it has to flip all of a sudden because you got some hormones that are raging in your body. If we talk, educate, I'm not saying you're not gonna have a bad day or a moody day, because yeah, they still came, but part of me including them was to make sure that they understood, it does you no good to teach the community about things that you're not teaching your own about. And so I was like, I don't want to ever be in a position where you told me you ain't learn etiquette, vision, safe boundary, healthy boundaries, safe relationships. You're going to hear it home and you're going to hear it as you help me with this program.
Froze up for a minute.
There you go.
You're
I can
back.
hear. Yep, there we go.
Okay. Okay. Yes. So you say you don't want to be basically teaching other people kids things that you haven't taught your own.
Right. Yep. I wanted them to be a part of, trying to build some, legacy and wealth and family business. Like, this is what other cultures do. I mean, we just not, it's a different type of business, different type of service-based business. But so when they come with me to Baltimore and they come and help and they set up and they participate and share, when I get paid from the state, they get paid from the state.
Nice. Yes. And that's where it starts. The modeling. What is your oldest? What are they into? What are some of their interests?
Well, her academic interest is in forensics. Not sure how that happened, but hey, this is her life. But for a season, she was really into like culinary decorating. Not so much the baking part. She could bake, but she got more joy in the artistic expression. So again, one of the other benefits of homeschooling, we are able to pursue these one-off side interests that are not necessarily a part of your day-to-day curriculum. So she was able to, audition for Kids Baking Championship. Got interviewed, met with the executive producer, and they were blown away with, her creativity and how she decorated and made and produced different desserts. I think, they told me, I mean, she did not get picked, but she definitely got to the like final round before they made the selections for that season. My daughter, of course, has been trained to be respectful and, so they were looking for personality for TV, with kids who could bake and just my children, they're not going to give you that sass. They're not going to give you all that zestiness. They just don't. So she answered the questions, right? And so they was like, listen, it's not her work. Her work is phenomenal, probably some of the best that we've seen, but a lot goes into casting. So they kind of gave me that behind the scene, but it was still a great, opportunity for her to even engage with that. She learned how to make all kind of stuff I never learned how to make. She was in here making macarons and puff pastries, and I was just like,
Nice.
well, I can make some cookies. I mean, I can make some cookies from scratch. And she in here, with the almond flour and heating it up, and it's got to look like a ribbon. And I mean, it's a whole process to make macarons. And so that was something though that she would have never had she not homeschooled. My son's hobbies outside of sports right now, he shows a little bit of anime. He's my different child. He's my different. It's like hard to shop for him because I'm like he's not really into a whole lot. So I'm maybe next year, he'll blossom. And my youngest is probably the life of the party. Like sometimes she be telling them what to do. Sometimes when you have multiple children, you realize the youngest one usually is more outspoken because they have to compete for mom and dad's attention. They got to compete on the sibling totem pole. So it's a whole lot of stuff. So they're just a little more vocal. But she's definitely into the Minecraft, this big Fortnite, all of them into Fortnite. But the typical stuff, I would love to see them go outdoors more. And they do, but only when they see other kids outside. They're not like the initiators for nature. But they really do enjoy a variety of different things. There was a season they were really into Legos, so we did the little Lego club at the library. But now that the older two are getting older, It's like they seem like all they want to do is sleep and eat. So that seems to be their
Mm.
hobbies right now.
Growing, they growing.
They growing
Growing.
pains.
Yes.
Um, yeah, so
So
that's all I
what,
can really think about.
no worries. What type of outside, because you talked on the tutorials, you talked on co-ops, what other outside, because you say your son's into sports. So is he
Yeah.
playing for like rec, or is he,
Yeah,
how are,
he's played for our county rec. They did soccer for about 5 or 6 years, and then it switched over for him to basketball. My oldest played soccer, same amount of time, and then she switched over to volleyball. And then I think she stopped in high school. Once they got into that dual enrollment, well, once she got
mm,
into dual enrollment, it became all about the books. My
yeah.
son is actually still playing. They just finished their season with the rec basketball, the county rec basketball. My youngest, we tried to get her into a sport and we had just put her in soccer, just doing everything that we did with the other two. And then COVID had hit. She had like 2 practices and we just, for whatever reason, for the life of us, have not been able to pick up a sport. So now I told her she's doing swimming. I said, you have to do something active. We need something physical for you to do to kind of stay healthy, stay in shape. Um, and so I said, well, it's either soccer, basketball, or swimming because she wants to do volleyball, but she's not quite old enough.
Okay.
And so she said, well, okay, well, or I said dance. And so she's like, I don't want to dance. So I was like, all right, well, swimming it is. Just know you in this head and the chlorine, we're gonna be battling. And so she said, well, that's fine. So we're gonna try to get her into swimming. But they just weren't the stick with the sport to geared into a scholarship. But my daughter got her academic scholarship, so mama's happy. I
I
am
know,
okay
and
with
that is
that.
so amazing. Big congratulations for that,
Thank
mama and
you.
y'all. Yes, that's
Yes.
teamwork. Teamwork make the dream work.
Absolutely.
Yes, I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Y'all are amazing. And like you said, starting out, like this is a lifestyle. Like
It is.
homeschooling, it's a lifestyle. And it's a freedom. It's just like a different sauce. It's
Yes.
like,
Definitely
I
different
keep
sauce.
wiggling my shoulders for whatever reason, but it's just like that's what it give you a little shimmy. It gives you a
It
little
is.
shimmy.
It is. It's different, but it's fun. It's been fun. And I've enjoyed it. I mean, yes, there have been some hard moments. There have been some utterly exhausting moments. Before again, homeschooling, I was a social worker working in child welfare, ran a couple of domestic violence shelters and homeless shelters, and that's a
Mm,
lot of work. But there were still days that I
listen,
was more exhausted from homeschooling than I was doing all those things. And I think that was learning too that you don't have to go on every field trip. You don't have to join every
mhm.
class that the park and planning offers. And so initially, it's like anything that said homeschool, and I was signed up for and running myself ragged. I mean, we did 4-H, we did rec clubs, we did, just like 3 or 4 different tutorials and 2 different co-ops. And I was like, mm-mm. And so again, that's why I said it took me about 4 years to understand really, I don't have to
Yeah.
do all of this. And then I, became very familiar with Homeschool Legal Defense Association. I've really studied the laws and understood the laws, became more confident in my portfolio review. So now my portfolios, they're all digital. I set them up on my Google Drive right at the beginning of the
Right.
semester, take pictures of all the books, they're in there, take pictures of all of the syllabi, they're in there. And just as we go along, I keep no papers. I keep no, so my first 7 years of homeschool, I had all these big 3-ring binders, looked like I worked for a government contractor. It was binders after binder after binder with all these papers. And then eventually I said, no, digital is where it's at. So I love it. So that's another thing I show parents how to do a digital portfolio, just to kind of ease some of
Nice.
that paper and keep organized.
Nice. Yeah, I know Maryland is one that requires a portfolio. So that's an awesome tutorial to
Yes.
dish out. Yes, much
Absolutely.
appreciation. With your co-ops, because I know, I mean, you just say it was in 3 tutorials, you was in everything. How are you going about finding all of these organizations, like these different families? Like how are you finding them?
So I'm the kind of person where if I see a pamphlet, a flyer, if I'm going, I'm just pulling everything. I just pull everything and then go home and read it all later. I would see something, hey, sign up on this listserv for, yep. So I found my name on all kind of listservs. I created an email just for homeschool stuff like that. And
Oh,
I saw initially early on when my daughter was like 4, and I told you we were looking for what to do with her, they were having an information meeting for homeschool, and it said something like pre-K 4 to 8th grade. And I was like, okay. So I went to an information meeting. I think I probably went to 3 of the same information meetings to really understand what are y'all doing? Y'all
get
only
all
meet
the
one day?
information. Yeah.
Like y'all meet one day a week in that school? How does that work? And then understanding, oh, well, the tutor, y'all don't call them teachers, we're tutors, and the tutors present the information, and the parents go home and help them memorize that information and do work around that information. Oh, okay. So, so I mean, really, it's just being when you have lived on one income or limited resources, you become a master at finding things that are free or nearly free.
Yes.
You become
Yes.
a
Yes.
master. And so I think just that ability to just be in everything and find out what's going on. I think, between county listservs, homeschool listservs, and you go to one information meeting and they just keep sending you stuff. I was just like, okay, well, let's try this year. Okay, let's try this and this. Okay, next year that didn't work. That was too much. Let's just try this one virtually. And so I love it because it's like, okay, I don't have to do the same exact thing every year. And I think for me, that's what kept homeschooling exciting, because I think if I was doing the same curriculum or had been in one co-op my entire time, I probably would have gotten bored. Just
Mm,
my personality is like, okay, we did that for 5 years. That was cool. What can we do now? Okay, let's try this
nice.
for another 3 or 4 years. And so for me, that kind of just kept that freshness alive. So just like anything, homeschooling can become stale if you let it. So you always have to look for fresh, new, innovative ideas to keep your learner engaged and keep you engaged.
You say you never touched on like or purchased whole box curriculums. Is that still like that's never been like you just
One,
piece
it
it
it it
together?
really it was because of the resources. I mean, like you look at some of these big name companies, third grade curriculum for everything. It's like $1,000. And again, at
Mm,
the time when I'm, just starting out, young parents, if we hadn't made it up to the career pay ladder yet, right? And so it's like I can't $900 on that. So I have to figure out something else. Now listen, and I also knew with my personality and my homeschool style, I didn't want to follow a scope and sequence for all the subjects that my state tells me I have to do, because that to me takes away the autonomy, it takes away the freedomness. That's just
mm,
for me. Some people thrive with not having to figure out anything. They just want
yeah.
to be told on Monday, you read this, on Tuesday, you read this. And if that's your jam, baby, buy the box curriculum. But for those like
Mm,
me, that's not your jam, you can figure out how to piecemeal stuff together. And then as a homeschool parent, you have to do a little bit of education to learn what type of schooling is there. Like, you want to classical and you want to do a lot of rote memorization, or you're an unschooler, like you start hearing these terms, you're like, what does that mean? Let me go back to the
mm,
drawing board and study. And I found that I was a little bit of all of them. So my homeschooling was
yeah.
very eclectic. And so there are
Yeah.
some days like with math, I was perfectly fine with following a traditional curriculum, because me and my reservations with math. But when it came to like science or social studies, I was like, first of all, I ain't like none of the social studies and history in the elementary level. So I always piecemealed my stuff together, because what I didn't want to hear is a bunch of untruths about this nation
Make
and how
believe.
it started. And I was like, So we definitely ain't buying that curriculum for social studies. So I would piecemeal, some mapping skills and some things about teaching about things in the diaspora and different cultures. And so I would just piecemeal my stuff together. And so that just kept me, I just kept doing it. And so even when we were probably able to afford a box curriculum, I was already well-oiled machine at that point and didn't see the need to
Nice.
do that.
Nice. 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 See, I just want to throw that out there to parents too, like, and understanding that you don't have to go and spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars. I didn't even know they were that much. $900 for a curriculum. Lord, that's wow.
Yeah.
But you don't have to do that. There's plenty of free resources. Like Shenita said, check out that Dollar Tree.
Yes.
Because they have plenty of resources. I know that's where I started at when I started my journey to Dollar Tree and thrift stores.
Yes.
Dollar Tree, I'm frugal. And I love to encourage that frugality for
Yes.
those who are working with one income or whatever your income.
Yes.
Either way, in this time and day, like everyone should be trying to be frugal for real, for real.
Agreed.
Everybody,
Agreed.
but just understand the resources are available, and your mind may be processing it right now. But Shenita, where can we find you?
Oh, you can find me at She Schools across all social media platforms. You can also reach me by sending me your information on my contact me part on my website at www.sheschools.com. And if you're local to the DMV, I'm here.
Nice, nice. And before I let you go, I need from you. You've already given us so many gems, but three more things that you would like to leave with homeschool families. Just, three, 15 plus. Like what you got?
I would say for the one contemplating homeschool or who's new to homeschool, take everything out of your Amazon cart. That's number one. Take everything out. For the homeschooler who does not possess or doesn't feel they possess a lot of organizational skills, um, find a path and plan that works for your type of organization. Everyone is not a type A personality. And I would say for number three, for the veteran homeschooler that has had to make some pivots because of illness or death in the family, or God forbid, a disruption in family, separation, divorce, whatever, it's okay to pivot. It's okay if you have to put your child in school, in a traditional school for a year or half a year or a couple of years until you can kind of get things back on your feet. So, homeschooling definitely is the journey, but sometimes life happens. And so if that happens, like when I had to go through treatment, before I knew what stage, how many chemotherapy sessions I would need, that was a conversation we had to have about putting my daughter in school because I wouldn't be able to keep up. And so luckily, I had a wonderful tutorial that, took care of all the expenses for me. I didn't have to worry about it. They said, Shenita, we got you. Put her in all the classes and we got it. They sent me all her books. I didn't have to worry about anything financially. They is the best one in town. Am I able to share their name?
Of course.
If y'all are in the DMV area, please check out Extend Homeschool Tutorial. It's a
Okay,
great program.
I love her.
Yes, please check them out. They were just really supportive. But again, I was willing if needed to be. So that would be my last piece of advice, just learning that you have to be flexible when life throws you some lemons.
Yeah. Yes, I love that. Thank you so much, Shenita. Thank you for all of this. And yes, Kim,
Yeah.
big shout out to Extend Tutorial. I
Yes.
love her. She's a beautiful soul, and she is definitely open and willing to help you with whatever you need.
Yes.
So I see why you have grown to be, where you're at with everything, because
Yes.
that's that energy. Like, I
Yes,
love it. Thank
absolutely.
you. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having
Families,
me.
once again, of course. You don't have to do it alone. Remember, that's always my little end memo. You don't have to do it alone. The resources are there, the people are there, the community is there. Whatever you need for your family to reach the level of success that your family is trying to reach is available. Just do your research, listen to the podcast, all that great stuff. But homeschool your kids.